Chapter 26, Decisions. We never saw 10 of those who escaped with us that night. We will never know if they were captured or not. All that did make it was grateful and prayed all the next day for those that weren't with us. After the commotion died down a few days later, Oren and I worked again on our records. We only did it at night in the Temple of Light. We sensed that there were more eyes on the temple, and although they never found our safe house, we had to be very careful. Getting food was increasingly difficult. We knew we couldn't stay there forever. We held a meeting to decide what to do. After having experienced the prison of those of the sons of Belial, we knew that we would not change anything. Our safety was threatened more and more every day. We had to do something. We decided that the best thing to do was to leave Alta. It was difficult to decide where to go. Pundo would be sure to have his enforcers everywhere in Pisidia. We needed to leave ATLATIA, but the big question was, how? We had no means of transportation, and our supplies were next to nothing. Everything seemed to be hopeless. Instead of coming to a decision, we ended the meeting no further ahead than before. Elchi, who was always filled with ideas, kept Oren and I up with them. He wanted us to hijack a ship or an airship. He made us laugh at his schemes. At the time, they seemed totally preposterous. A defenseless group of people overtaking a major transport vehicle. Later, after Elchi had left us alone, Oren and I talked of our situation. "Can you imagine us overtaking an airship?" I asked Oren. For a moment he said nothing. Then he looked at me very seriously. "What else is there? Besides, who would have thought that we could have made such an escape from the prison?" "Yes, but that was different." "Was it?" he continued. "We have to leave the country. You know what the seers are saying. The time of the end is near. We must make our move with the records, or they shall be lost forever." "I can't believe that you're serious." "Believe it." Oren paced up and down. "We must organize ourselves and prepare for this journey. The records are almost finished. It is time." I was flabbergasted by what I was hearing. "We have no supplies. What do you propose to do about that?" Oren was getting irritated with me. "Think, my friend. What is wrong with you? You sound like you are defeated already." Suddenly the words of Miram went through my mind. "Don't give your power to anyone." That indeed is what I had done. I had given my powers to Pundo and his enforcers. I could not see anything but defeat. This gave me new energy, my power back. "Yes, Oren, forgive me. I believe that we can do it." We sat for hours talking of our ideas, and then decided to present them before the group. We called a meeting immediately. Elchi was thrilled that we finally saw his way. After much talking, the group began to see our way. It was decided that after careful planning, we would hijack an airship and go to Og, but first we would bury the set of records for ATLATIA. Our original plan had been to bury one set of the records beneath the Hall of Records, but due to the dangers that this would put on us, we decided that the best idea would be to bury it within one of the temples. We decided that the best choice would be the Temple of Wisdom. We chose to bury it where it would not be found by the enforcers should they pillage the temples. We carefully dug beneath the fountain and under the great crystals. When our burial spot was ready, we conducted a short ceremony led by Sigund as we placed the silver tube which we held so precious into its grave. It was an emotional moment as we watched Sigund and Oren together bury the tube. We all knew this was a symbol of the end. The tube would perhaps become buried for many hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, and then perhaps it would be found by future generations of people. We prayed that whoever should find this tube of knowledge would persist until they were able to read what had been recorded on the many microdiscs from our computer. We only hoped that the civilization at that time would be sophisticated enough to have computers so that they wouldn't look at these devices and wonder at their purpose. We all assisted in covering the grave, and when we were all through, it was as if a great fountain had never been disturbed. We hurried back to the safe house afterwards, as it was getting light outdoors, and enforcers would be patrolling the temple soon. After hours of deliberation, we decided on our move to escape. We would hijack a supply freighter. That way we would have food to last us for the journey once we arrived at the destination. The only time that would be safe for us would be at night, so we would move easily through the city into the airship docks. We would have to be careful not to alert anyone to the departure of the ship. We would have to try to make it all look as natural as possible, or else Pundo and his people would be upon us. We decided to go with the airship as opposed to the water ship because of its speed. We would be far from Pundo's grasp with the speed of the airship. For a week, Elchi and 2 other men crept out each night to watch the comings and goings of the ships and the crew at night. At night, most men who worked on the ship would stay in the city, leaving only a small crew to guard the ship. When Elchie and his men got closer, they found that there was a guard at the gate and at the airship, and two aboard the airship who would be easy to overtake. It appeared that our task would be easy. However, we had forgotten one small detail. Who would drive the airship? Most of us were scribes, mathematicians, artists, and architects, but there was not one pilot or navigator in the lot. What were we going to do? We had to act now before the ship took off. It was to be loaded the following day. We had to act now. I took it upon myself to find a pilot. I took the others to go ahead with our plans, and thus they would wait for me at the airship, and that I would be there by midnight with the pilot. Orrin thought I was crazy and insisted that he go with me. Despite his adamant pleas, I would not let him risk himself, too. I told him to wait until midnight, and if I had not arrived with the pilot, that we should abort the mission. I knew of a social club where pilots would go for conversation and beverages. I knew I could find one there. I would have to be inconspicuous and then lure the pilot to the ship by midnight. Not an easy task, but the enforcers were not likely to be frequenting the club. However, I tried to appear as much like pilot myself as possible. When I walked inside, there was a lot of noise, people talking and music playing. I sat myself at a table next to some men engaged in heavy conversation. They were discussing the air channels from Alta to Sade. Since I had at least flown under my own power those many years ago, I was capable of improvising my way into the conversation. Yes, I've run into a few of those updrafts of air. It can surely disturb your momentum. Two men looked at me and seemed to welcome me into the conversation. You just come in from a flight, have you? The skinny one with the beady eyes asked. No, I've been on leave, but I start out tomorrow. I have a new ship. This sparked their interest. The men with the large paunch looked at me suspiciously. Thought flew through my mind. Had I played my hand too soon? Should I have been more cautious? How did you get a new ship? Good question, I thought. My father had been one on his first airship pilots. I was given his command of the ship by Pundo in his honor. I figured I had been gone this far. I might as well go all the way. Shh, I motioned to them. I'd really prefer the word didn't get out. I looked around, hoping no one had heard my boast. They loved it. Oh, a secret, the paunchy man said. Yes, so to speak, so don't tell a soul, will you? They shook their heads in agreement. Never. Now for my bait. Would you like to see my ship? Their eyes widened with anticipation. Yes, they both replied. Great, I thought to myself. I have a pilot and a co-pilot. I toasted them both and let them out the door. It was almost midnight. I had just hoped that all had gone as planned for the others. My next problem would be to get them to pilot the plane. I happened to notice that one of the men, the skinny one, carried a laser on his belt. I turned to him. You know, I used to have a laser just like that, may I? I gestured that I wanted to look at it. Amazingly, he obliged. As we walked, I examined his laser and made up stories of having used mine against hijackers in the past. They completely enjoyed my stories until we reached the gate to the airship. When they saw that there was no guard, they stopped. Something looks awry here, the paunchman said. Where's the guard? Perhaps he's aboard the ship. Shall we check it out? My heart was beating faster and faster. Then I saw Orion's head appear from the doorway of the airship. So did the thin man. Hey there, he shouted to Orion. I let the two men walk ahead of me as I motioned behind them to Orion that I had a laser. Orion came forward to greet us. I prayed that he could go along with my charade at least until we boarded the ship. Hello, I yelled to him. I'm glad to see you're all right. There's no guard out front. I could see his mind ticking away. Yes, everything is fine. The fat pilot asked suspiciously. You know this man? Oh, yes, fine man. Come on in, Orion invited. We're here on our way to see. He stopped in mid-sentence, fearing to leak his secret. The skinny man looked at me as if he committed a crime. We'd love to come on board for a minute. I winked to the two. They felt at ease now and boarded the ship. When we were all safely aboard the ship, Elchie and Orion quickly closed the door behind us. Hey, said the big man, what is going on here? I smiled as I pointed the laser in their directions. We're going for a ride, and you're driving.